Welcome, everyone. I'm currently away on vacation and will be back Wednesday, October 22nd. Today, your host will be Søren Basher. Søren runs his own investment advisory firm called Brilliant Advice.
Well, welcome to Brighter with Herbert. I'm Søren Burt, and I'm here with Brian White today.
I can go by Brian Burt. It doesn't bother me.
Brian Burt, that's right. Yep, in honor of Herbert, we're all something Burt.
Yeah.
Well, Brian, we've got a few topics regarding Tesla in China. And I can't imagine a better person to talk to regarding all things Tesla and all things China.
I've not only followed Giga Shanghai very, very closely. I had lived in China many years ago, and I've been to China as recently as this year for the Shanghai Auto Show. It's a topic that I've covered since probably the first year of the channel, and I'm on 5 years this month. So I think I would have an opportunity to share some insights in that regard.
Fantastic, Brian. We need some insights. So perhaps you can help us with this. So we apparently have breaking news that Tesla is restarting its projects NV91 and NV93, which apparently are models smaller than the Model Y. I guess here's a wishful image here of a particular vehicle that somebody's hoping that they'll see. Also here we've got reported media outlets reported that Tesla plans to start these projects and referring to this idea of this $25,000 vehicle. I guess I'm curious about your thoughts on these two projects.
Okay, so I saw that story Wednesday morning. Of course, I immediately did all the research I could and found that all of it comes back to a single rumor on social media. It appears to be, by all accounts, wishful thinking, but there's a lot of misunderstanding about the $25,000 car at all. So let me share with you. The thing is, you've got some people on social media, some influencers saying, I am 99.99% sure they're going to make a human-driven cybercab. That render that they showed, that's not it. NV91 would look very much like the cybercab. NV93, we don't even know what that would look like, but it would be based on the same platform, so it definitely wouldn't look like that picture. Another reason to suspect that this is not valid, but really the single source rumor part of it is the overriding thing. NV91 was a US-based development project. To just take all that and transfer it over, it doesn't make sense. You've got different suppliers, different everything, different engineering team. It doesn't make sense. So why can't you just build a human-operated cybercab? How hard would it be to add wheels and pedals? Not that hard, apart from the fact that the real estate under the dashboard has already been consumed by other systems. You could work around that. You could find a way. If it's steer-by-wire, it doesn't need a physical bit of linkage and connection. That's not the obstacle. The obstacle is everything else that makes it human drivable. This car's only going to have 80, maybe at most 100 horsepower because it doesn't need throw you back in your seat acceleration. You don't want that in a car that is being driven by a robot. That would be deeply unsettling. So you're going to need a different motor. And at that point, if you got a different motor, you're going to need different cooling loop entirely because you need more cooling and you need a bigger battery. So more cooling still. And now you're going to need different tires because the tires are only rated to about 80, 85 miles, maybe 90 miles an hour. The highest speed for the Cybercab is 85. It doesn't go any faster. It can't. And in part because the tires are wrong. And the suspension is not designed to handle heavy lateral Gs. So you need different suspension. The wheels might be the same, but again, they weren't designed for lateral G resistance. So probably the wheels need to be different. Gonna need different brakes because if you're going to be doing 100, 130, even rarely, you need brakes that are commensurately strong. Every system is different. Well, the wiring harness is the same. No, because now you need mirrors. And if they're going to be heated and dimmed and folded, you need a whole different wiring harness. Those seats are no longer appropriate for somebody who's going to be in this car all day and on road trips. These are seats designed for cybercab. So the seats everything needs to be different. And that's before you get into, are you going to have a rear window? Because that's a structural wall. You can't move that wall. You can't remove the wall. Everything is different. And at that point, once you change all those systems, it ain't $25,000 no more. You're not going to put a $3,000 motor in a Cybercab when a $1,000 motor will do the trick. The battery's bigger, the cooling, I mean, everything costs more money at that point, and it ignores what a Cybercab is to pretend that it could just put on a steering wheel. Guys, it would drive like a forklift. You wouldn't enjoy it.
So, Brian, let me just summarize. If I heard you correctly, a Cybercab with a steering wheel that will be sold to customers is a sure thing.
That is what some will take away from it. Well, it's just a engineering challenge. Yes, and it's a project called NV91 that was canceled in April of 2024. 24. So 18 months out, we're still dealing with 11 months ago. I made a video explaining all of this, and those big name influencers are still out pushing it. Maybe it's for engagement farming, or maybe they're genuinely so stupid they don't understand the first thing about the engineering, despite claiming otherwise. I don't know. Either way, I'm not impressed.
Can you tell me what happened to NV92?
Well, that article said 93. We don't know. We don't know anything about that one.
Okay. Yeah, no, I was just throwing it out there just to see if you had any scuttlebutt.
Oh, the number in between. Oh,
yeah.
I see what you mean. Yeah, no idea.
Okay. All right. Well, here's another couple for you. So we've got apparently plans for that are codenamed E41 and D50, which is plans for Model Y and Model 3 Standard, which are expected to enter production around mid-2026 at Giga Shanghai. What are your thoughts about these two?
They only make sense. I see a lot of people saying this doesn't make sense. The Model Y Standard, the Model 3 Standard, these are not even cheaper than a regular Model Y and 3 a month ago. Right, that's in the US. Let's get outside the US. In Germany, it appears the YS is $10,000 to $12,000 cheaper. In the UK, the Y and 3S could be with incentives, because it would bring them down to the level that they qualify for incentives. It could be 25% cheaper than the Model Y Standard. So outside the US, these make perfect sense. If you'd have told me they're going to make the YL and it's going to launch from one factory first by a lot, I would not have guessed China. I think I would have been of the opinion that China needs cheaper vehicles and smaller vehicles. And if they're going to be the same size, go cheaper. But a bigger, more expensive one, that was not on my bingo card. I would have gotten that wrong. So bringing the more affordable models to China is good business. My only question is, can the factory handle it? If they say it can, and that's exciting. These are easier cars to build. The 3 and Y, since the refreshes, the Highland and Juniper refreshes, are simplified from the manufacturing side. These should go together more quickly than the old versions, which means more efficiency. I mean, are we talking 5% more? 10% more? 10% more, that's 100,000 units of capacity. That's enough. Can the factory keep up? We'll find out.
That's interesting. And so just on that news, we have note here that Tesla's Shanghai Gigafactory is beginning its production ramp for Q4. And I think we've already seen perhaps some data coming out of China the last couple of weeks that's showing an indication of that. And we're going to talk about that in more detail in a second.
Yes. Well, but we'll start with that slide. It said that they're increasing production. They're ramping up. And Q4 is historically the strongest quarter for automotive sales worldwide. China's Q4 is always strong. It's usually limited by how much they're capable of producing. But again, these are simplified vehicles, so they can do it. They're already running 4 shifts. They're already running 24/7, apart from holidays. But the holiday doesn't happen until next quarter, Q1. So that means Q4 can be their absolute blowout if they want it to be. What it really means is that their requirement to lower prices or offer incentives is mitigated. If you're already selling every unit you can make, you don't need to cut prices. You don't need to push people to buy. The pull is strong enough. So we will see on that. But yes, if sales fall by 30,000 units in the US, China alone could make that up this quarter.
Interesting. Yeah, the quote here is that at the beginning of the fourth quarter, the brothers and sisters of the Shanghai factory are working hard to expand production and sprint at full power so that owners in China and Asia Pacific can pick up their cars as soon as possible. We actually have a video here, Brian, of the factory running in real time.
Oh, wow.
And this is pretty amazing to watch. This, I believe, has not been sped up. This is the speed at which the Shanghai Gigafactory operates. They're that quick in Shanghai.
Yes. That sounds right. And yeah, it's interesting to see how it all comes together. There is very little of it, but there is footage of the factory that was shot not by Tesla's PR department in China, but by news stations, by auto bloggers who were given the opportunity to shoot whatever they felt necessary. And you can see I mean, of course, this is a joke, but if you notice the catwalk behind, it's not a catwalk. It's all automated. It's all equipment. That's how Tesla takes advantage of vertical space in the way other manufacturers, even in China, even today, still don't. BYD's got a new factory they just finished this year that is shockingly big. It's several buildings in the same compound, but it spans 4 square miles, and you could comfortably fit every Tesla factory on that footprint with room to grow a corn maze. But the reason it's so big, one reason is the BYD factory does not utilize vertical space. I had a chance to talk with some engineers when I was in China, and I asked all of them, why are they not doing it? And the answer, the consensus I got was, if BYD decides they don't want this factory anymore, if they want to sell the factory, if they go out of business, they don't want it to become a stranded asset. Tesla's factory, no one else is going to roll in there and use it the same way Tesla did. They don't know how. If it was a traditional style of factory, anyone could use it. And they want that to be, they want to keep that door open for the future. So, yeah, we'll see more of that coming out of Shanghai soon.
With the ramping of production in Shanghai, what do you think the ultimate capacity is of the Shanghai Gigafactory?
Well, nameplate capacity is one area where Tesla has always understated the real number. Whatever the real number is, if they were to post the real number, it's likely they would miss it. You don't want to run at 100. You run at 100, things break. You want to run at, 95, 96, really not under 90, but not over probably 95, because you need the ability to not break things. You don't want to be on that knife's edge all the time. But whatever that capacity is, that actual burst rate capacity for Tesla, and this is what I've used in my quarterly production and delivery numbers for years, is if we have a great, strong quarter, I take whatever Shanghai is and I add 1 to 2%, because they've always got another 1 to 2% they can give. And it defies understanding. The output per square foot of that factory, I mean, at 1 million cars a year for 10 million square feet, that means for every 10 square feet of factory space, they're making a car every year, which is pretty bonkers to think about. So yeah, they're always finding new efficiencies. They're always finding better ways to get things together quickly. And in that regard, Giga Shanghai is the crown jewel of the Tesla manufacturing empire.
Yeah, it really is quite amazing, isn't it? So speaking of rumors out of China, we now have stories about Optimus and orders to suppliers. So I'm curious as to what you think about this, Brian. So we've got a rumor that there's an order for $685 million to a Chinese supplier for Optimus linear actuators. And according to this source, this is enough to produce 180,000 Optimus robots. And the deliveries of these actuators are expected to begin in Q1 of 2026. What are your thoughts about this, Brian?
So, when I'm done with this answer, I want to hear what your answer to this question is. The first part is, I don't know the quality of this rumor. When it comes to rumors coming from suppliers or about suppliers, they could be all over the place. We just don't know. But the heavy lifting in that rumor is starting. Doesn't mean we're going to see all 180,000 even all of next year. It could just be that when you place an automotive order, and I imagine it's similar for other things that you would buy, robotics elements, for example. If I'm Tesla and I'm placing orders for blinkers, I will tell them what I need in a month and in 6 weeks, but I will also tell them what I expect to need in 6 months, in a year, in 5 years. They don't usually go out 5 years, but I've seen orders that go out 18 months. And especially if you have the all new 2027 models, whatever, you might see orders that say, we need 10,000 of this unit in 18 months. Mm-hmm. And as the date approaches, you keep revising that projection until you get within, I don't remember, I think 16 weeks is the cutoff. I don't remember offhand, but there's a cutoff at which we're going to start making them. So please don't change it after this. And if you do, you might need to give us a call to adjust it. But we want to know as far out as possible so we can have the capacity when you need it or tell you that we can't. So it could be that 180,000 order is real, but that it has nothing to do with early 26, let alone even in 2026. It could be out much beyond that. But I would still chalk it up to a single source rumor.
Yeah, and unfortunately, those may not be particularly reliable, although I suppose, we're starting to hear sort of more and more about this. And again, is it a single source or is it more than that?
Well, I want to hear your take on that one.
Yeah, I don't know that I've had any special insight other than I think it is time for Tesla to start placing orders of the components that they need. Certainly the earlier plan was to produce up to, 5,000 robots in Q4 of this year. That's not going to happen. And so the question is, when is that production really going to start? And I would imagine that Elon wants to start that as soon as possible in 2026.
Yeah, I would think so. But I don't know if it's ready. I have had the luxury of meeting a handful of people who work either directly on the Optimus team or peripherally just outside of Tesla on Optimus. And they were so excited. They wanted to tell me everything. But what they told me instead was nothing because the NDAs are very, very strict. And they would tell me about other robotics companies. And from that, I could infer a little bit about what they do. What they would tell me is I asked, what version have we seen? And I think they said, I want to say it was 2.0 at We Robot and 2.x. They didn't know which version at the diner. And I said, so we haven't seen 3.0. And he goes, nope. And you're not gonna until it's done. And it's not done. So they're still, as of July, August, iterating. And I didn't get the sense from them that it was in any way done, that it was still very much a work in progress and that it was still undergoing rapid iteration. That tells me that right around the corner is almost definitely the wrong timeline. I would think, especially for China orders, the first, 500 are going to be $1 million each and bespoke because we're not going to ramp production until we've actually made sure that everything's ironed out. And we just haven't heard anything about that degree of testing taking place, because if you had 500 or 1,000 out there, the number of people who would have the ability to see them and know what they're doing becomes impossible to silence. And those rumors would abound. You would see them all over social media.
The interesting thing about this particular rumor and the numbers of the orders, if you take the total supposed contract value and divide by 180,000, it's about $3,800 per robot in actuator costs for that particular supplier. That doesn't mean necessarily that's the total actuator cost for the robot. I think actually initially it'd be quite a bit higher than that. But that's an interesting data point to think about.
And that's just for one type of actuator.
That's right.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure that that's the right number, but it could be. Yeah.
Yeah. What probability, Brian, would you assign that we would see version 3 of Optimus in Q4 of this year?
So the first question is, I've seen a lot of people swearing that we're going to see it at the shareholder meeting. And I don't believe that's the case because I don't recall a time Tesla has ever shown a new product at a shareholder meeting. That doesn't seem like something they do. Then you've got, but what about the rest of the quarter? Well, the rest of the quarter is long. I mean, that's most of the quarter. I'm going to say low. I'm going to say very low, because even if version 3 is more or less design locked this quarter, I don't think they want to show it, because as soon as you show it, your competitors get real excited and start benchmarking it, not stealing it, not copying it, but benchmarking it. There's this pervasive myth that used to be true, but in the last 20, 25 years really hasn't been, that China just copies and pastes. They're a Control-C, Control-V engineering country, and they're not. They are the only kid in class getting an A on the test, and you think they're copying off all the B and C students? I don't know how that works. You would have to have an understanding of what a wrong answer is to come out with a right answer from that kid's paper. So I think that what they copy is not the how, but the what. It's the outcome that they copy. Mm-hmm. When the hoverboard was invented, overnight there were cheap knockoffs coming from China. The inventor bought one. He's like, I'm going to crack this open. I'm going to show you they stole my IP, and I'm going to sue them. And he cracked it open and he said, oh my gosh, this is simple. This is elegant. This is cheap. This works. I wish I'd invented this instead. Because what they did is they looked at the outcome and said, how do we get there? And that's what they did. That's what they're doing with automotive engineering. There was a big fear that when Tesla first got there, the next day we would see a Tesla factory next door that makes cars that are indiscernible, that use the same technology. And it hasn't happened. They, for the most part, don't even use the same battery chemistry, which means they're not using the same battery management system, which means they're not using the same software, the same user interface. And the design language is different. We just talked about the factories themselves are different. It's tricky to figure out how that equals copying. It doesn't. But they do benchmark. And I don't think we'll see, I think we're going to see Optimus version 3 as close to the date that they want to release it as possible to prevent that.
Thank you for that. And now to put you on the spot further.
Oh boy.
In Q1, what do you think the probability is that we see version 3 of Optimus? Greater
Much
than 50%?
higher.
Much higher?
I would say, I don't know, but I would say 50% wouldn't surprise me. If you said, I'm saying 50%, give me the over under, I would say, gosh, I just don't know. I just don't know. But I think the odds of seeing it in Q1 are much, much higher. I think even if they finished it before the holidays, they might want to just sit back over the holidays and think for a minute, get their brains right, regroup and decide, is this actually it? Or do we need to do a little bit more? And you've got the team fighting to just release the darn thing, I'm sure, and Elon fighting to say, wait for it to be perfect. And we saw this with the Cybertruck. Mm-hmm. We'd heard people inside the design studio who said that months before they were going to release the Cybertruck, Elon said, scrap it, let's start over. And they said, no, we will all walk out of here if you try to make us do that. And so at some point we have to release the damn thing. And there is room for improvement. I can see why he would want some things to be different. But yeah, at some point you just have to accept it. I would argue that if Unitree is a viable product at 5,000-10,000, Optimus is a more viable product at 40,000. Optimus 2.5, Optimus 2.0 even. Because Unitree only has one function that it does, and that's get people to come into your booth at a conference. It's very good at that, not much else. But for that purpose, it's ready, it's done. The trick is, what I half expect Tesla to do is not sell the early robots, but lease them. And I don't mean lease them the way you do with a car where you have a specific term and a specific number of miles or hours that you can put on it, but rent them out on a monthly basis. So when anything goes wrong, they don't fix it. They don't initiate a warranty claim. They just send a new one out and take the old one back.
Yep.
They just have one show up and trade spots, because it could be something as simple as the two fingers on the left hand don't work. Great. A new one will be there in the morning. Don't think twice about it. And we'll just deal with it because it's a rental. Who cares? That would allow Tesla the opportunity to make bolder bets with what it can and can't do, because you're no longer beholden to the customer's long-term satisfaction. It just has to work today. I'm thinking they could release it anytime. They won't until it's version 3, and can tackle, I would say, 10% of human tasks reasonably well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that, Brian. And let's go back to cars for a minute. So the Tesla Model Y in China has dethroned China's #1 best-selling car, despite costing 4 times as much. So no car in the top 10 costs even half of what the Model Y costs.
Yes.
And this is according to AJ. Tesla Elon has made the iPhone of the car world. It's kind of interesting. And just before you comment, Brian, here's the list of the cars. And I thought that you made a wonderful comment on this. And perhaps you can share with the viewers your thoughts regarding it.
Well, I didn't know you had that post ready from X, but that's what I would have said is the Wuling Mini has a price that is lower than the margin on the Tesla Model Y. So if the Wuling company was able to reduce their cost of goods sold to $0 and sell it for that price, they would still have less profit per car than Tesla makes on a Model Y. Imagine if Tesla had a $5,000 car, a $7,000 car, they would sell, well, perhaps more than the Wuling Mini, but you lose a lot of features and benefits. I've had a chance to check out the Wuling Mini when I was in China, and it is an amazing car for the price. It costs less than a golf cart in the US, and it's a car. It has, a stereo in it. It has nice seats. It has windows. I saw skeptical voices on X responding to me saying, well, the rest of that list is cars that can't even go on the highway. And I thought, nope. I recognize several of these names, and I know they're real cars with real good cars. They're good cars, affordable, low budget cars. And so I looked up the ones I didn't know. And of course, all of them are highway capable. All of them get reasonably good crash test ratings. The Wuling Mini, I saw a picture on X of an accident where it went straight into a telephone pole. The whole front end buckled in. But if you look inside that door, you'll notice the cabin intrusion is minimal. I don't think they even broke a bone. And we know they were going good speed because of how much damage there was. And of course, the car didn't catch fire. So these are good quality cars being made at a reasonable price. In the US, we're not afraid of Chinese cars yet because we've got these very strict protectionist policies that so far have done a pretty good job of keeping them out. Volvo and Polestar being the only exceptions. And they've been able to get those in with reasonable tariffs because Volvo of North America exports to China, and you get to do a drawback on the tariffs so it cancels out basically. That's getting harder. But at some point, China finds a way to get things into your country. If you want to get a Chinese car into Europe, there's an added tariff. There's a 10% import tariff, but there's also anywhere up to an additional 23% tariff, depending on how much state support you get in China. Tesla gets the lowest tariff rate because they get no state support. They pay hundreds of millions in taxes, but other companies are state-owned. They pay the highest rate. Well, then you've got companies like BYD who have opened factories in Thailand. Thailand has preferred trade status. Those BYDs go into Europe with minimal tariffs. We're going to see more of that. If the U.S. hadn't decided to go back on the USMCA, it is my absolute belief that Chinese manufacturers would be operating now in Mexico to build cars to ship to the U.S. essentially, duty-free, really. when that trade normalizes, and it will at some point, Chinese manufacturers will be ready to pounce. We will have Chinese cars. Today, the concern is if you're in any third country, a country that doesn't have a domestic manufacturing base, the Chinese cars have an outrageous advantage. If you've got domestic auto manufacturing, you've got all kinds of weird policies to try and protect it. But if you're Nepal, for example, U.S. cars are almost non-existent. I see some Jeeps, I see some Ford Mavericks, not Maverick, but the smaller Fords. And that's about it for U.S. brands. The roads are really rough. You need something that's very rugged. There's, I think, 10 Teslas in the whole country. And but the Chinese brands do very well, in part because they're kind of right next door, but really because the protectionist policies don't exist. There's a level playing field, and the cars cost a third, half as much. So it makes it very challenging for those other countries to compete with Chinese manufacturing, and eventually those policies will fail. And when those companies get to the U.S., for example, if we could buy a BYD duty-free, it would be a very strong seller here.
Very good points, Brian. The last thing that I want to touch on today in this show with you is this. This is some information from AJ. He's saying that Tesla Model Y sales in China just pulled an estimated $4.6 billion in revenue in Q3 alone, nearly double that of its closest EV rival. And he said even crazier, the Model Y generated about as much revenue as the number 4 through number 9 best-selling EVs combined. And he says one model, one quarter, absolute domination. BYD has 0 models among the top 5 most revenue-generating vehicles. BYD's most revenue-generating EV is the Seagull, bringing in $805 million, or 18% of the Model Y revenue. Pretty astounding when you think about it.
Yes. So let's think about the auto industry generally. The auto industry generally is a low-margin business, 5%, 10% if you're really lucky. But the Chinese automakers are hell-bent on expansion, and expansion is expensive. These margins we're seeing, these are not the cost of goods sold compared to the retail price. They have a good margin there. These margins are razor thin because they're expanding so much, but it still counts. They're still dollars or renminbi. You got to count them. So what you're seeing is that BYD is saved by the fact that they are a battery manufacturer with customers outside of their company who are giving them things, buying their products at good margins. They have their version of Megapacks, their battery energy storage systems. They're making good money on those. And that means that their cost of goods sold is lower. They are the battery manufacturer, just as Tesla is for the Cybertruck 4680s, just as they are in partnership with Panasonic out of Sparks, Nevada for the 2170 cells that go into all the 3s and Ys in the US. That saves you money. So because BYD is vertically integrated and has other product lines, they're the ones who are actually showing a decent profit. When it comes to all the other companies, they're already at a low margin, and that low margin is on fewer vehicles, with not just fewer vehicles, not just lower margin, but cheaper price. So that means Tesla's making $5-10 grand a unit on Model Y, where the next guy's like, well, my car is only $20,000 and I'm only getting 8%, let's say 10% margin. You're making $2 grand. That's got to really hurt at the end of the day. So Tesla is still a premium brand. It is still a aspirational brand. And what we're seeing with the introduction of the YL, which will increase demand in China, and the YS, which we now have reason to believe they are going to begin making by the middle of next year, that means that factory is tapped out. That means that demand will be stronger than the supply, even though the supply will be increased. That means they don't have to cut costs, reduce prices to consumers, that is. That means they don't have to add costly incentives to try and motivate people to make their purchases. That means they're going to maintain these high margins moving forward. And typically, I'd say have cash on hand to spend on other things, but the mountain of cash is getting kind of challenging to summit at this point. So what's that money going to go to? Well, Cybercab deployment would be one. Optimus rollout would be another. If they choose not to sell Optimus, but just to rent it out, it's like, well, gosh, if our cost of goods sold is 50 grand, we can't make that many. Really? What if you throw $3 billion at it? Because that's probably going to be the free cash flow this quarter or thereabouts, because we sold 50,000 more units. Tesla plus you and I sold 50,000 more units this quarter than last. It's going to be, the cash pile is still growing.
That's right. Well, Brian, thank you for your insights. I can't think of anybody better to discuss Tesla and China with. And that brings us to the close of this particular show, but we're going to have you back on the next show, and we're going to talk about China some more.
I'm looking forward to it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Brian.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.